Thought I would produce a short video to show how to put a DC car decoder into a vehicle. As you can see, we have here a vehicle which we have totally taken apart. This is a Ritza vehicle, which are quite easy to take apart into all their separate pieces. I'm using a chassis from a different Valor vehicle. It's one of the battery bus range, and already I've made one or two little modifications. I've inserted the charging socket here and actually replaced the switch that was here. And we'll then move on to the next stage. As you can see, I've pretty well removed all the wiring that was on the vehicle, including the reed switch. This particular vehicle is quite easy to modify. This is the seating section, which I've altered slightly, but actually it fits very well on top, like so. And working out where the seating is going gives you an idea of whereabouts you will have space in which to actually place the DCcar chip. And I've largely decided that the chip will probably need to go in that space there. That seems quite a roomy area. The communications socket with the DCcar decoder chip I have already pre-wired, and I'm going to place this in fact in the position where the reed switch actually was. As you can see, I've actually fixed the communication socket here, onto which I soldered thin wires using lacquered wire. I usually trim off the ends of the wires by gently scraping them with a craft knife to ensure a good solder connection. Solder is then applied to the end of each wire. This is the DC05 chip which we're going to actually fit into the vehicle. As you can see, relative to the vehicle, this is actually a very small chip, and yet it has an amazing range of functions. This is where we have to be a little bit brave and actually solder the wire to the actual point on the solder there. It's usually a quick hold and a whip off, and that's usually sufficient to actually hold it in place. You need to visually check the solder joint to make sure you've actually got a fairly good joint. If not, repeat the process. Here we can see the chip has been soldered through to the communication socket, and some modifications have been made at the back end following the wiring diagram that is supplied by DCcar. Sometimes it's useful to be able to hold the chip in a set position whilst you're actually soldering, and I use this method for actually holding the chip whilst I'm actually soldering if I cannot hold it in my hand. You might find a better way of doing it. As you can see, I've now soldered a number of wires, additional wires, to the chip, including this one here which actually goes to the motor. A couple are here on this side, and the ground which actually is on this side. If we go back to the plan which is provided by DCcar, we can see which wires I've now actually fitted. It's this one here to the motor, this is the ground, this is your voltage in, and this is a link which normally goes through to the reed switch, which, if you remember, I've actually removed, so this then becomes a continuous link. By connecting just these wires and reinserting the batteries, we should now be able to see if it's working. If we just switch it on, you can see now that the wheels are beginning to turn, so we know that at the moment everything is working fine. So we have now completed the first part of the operation of installing the DCcar chip.